Hey y'all, it's me, Kevy. It's a new month, which means it's time for another wrap-up. I read 15 books in November. No personal record by any means, but many of these books wound up being way longer than I expected, so I'm totally fine with just 15. That's still a lot. But before I get into what I read, I've gotten some more birthday books. First, I've identified the unknown sender of Steve Cavanagh's The Liar and Twisted. Those were sent to me by Kelly over at Kelly's Reviews. Thank you so much, Kelly. I love this series and I hope you love it too. Kelly bought one of the books for herself as well, so please let me know what you think of it. Nell and Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot were the ones who bought me Tender is the Flesh. I was already excited for this, but now that I know y'all recommended it, I am even more convinced that I will love it. Longtime supporter Paull Belloni got me When the Reckoning Comes. This is a horror novel about the history of slavery and racism in the American South. I've been eager to read this one since I first heard of it, so thank you so much, Paull, for getting it for me. The delightful Shelley Swearingen sent me a copy of 451. This is a classic that I've been wanting to read for a long time, and since she sent me a copy, I was able to participate in her read-along over on Voxer. I really loved getting to discuss Fahrenheit 51 with the whole group, so thank you so much, Shelley, for letting me be a part of that. My cousin Jennie got me 4 books for my birthday. The first is My Year of Rest and Relaxation, about a woman overcome by the 21st century who decides to become a recluse. Next is The Parcel by Anosh Irani, about a transgender Indian sex worker and a horrible task that she is faced with. Then I got The Bees by Laline Paull, which is a thriller set inside a beehive, and all of the characters are bees. Finally, I got The Moving Finger, one of Agatha Christie's Miss Marple mysteries. Thank you, Jennie, for all these awesome books. Leo Bancroft gave me the Agatha Christie standalone Why Didn't They Ask Evans? Leo is also a big Christie fan, but is really new to reading her work. So he's basically where I was just over a year ago. I'm so excited for him to read more Christie, and I'm so excited to read this one. Oh, thank you so much, Leo. Finally, Gina Stanier got me 2 books. The first of which she picked out, which was Affinity by Sarah Waters. Y'all know how much I loved Tipping the Velvet, so I'm really excited to read more of her work. And then she let me choose 1 book, so I decided to go with Ring Shout, a book about demon hunters trying to eradicate the KKK, because in this book's universe, much like our own, Klansmen are literal demons. Thank you so much, Gina, for these books, and I cannot wait to read them. Yay, thank you so much, everybody, for all of these books. I've got so much excellent reading ahead of me. Now let's get into what I read in November. The first book I read this month was Mrs. McGinty's Dead by Agatha Christie, which was a gift from Sandy over at Miss Reads a Lot. Thank you, Sandy. As always, my full thoughts on Christie will be in their own video, but I really enjoyed this one. It isn't easy for Christie to trick me nowadays, but she sure got me hook, line, and sinker with this one. After that, I read The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont, which I've already discussed in my latest NetGalley video. It's an historical fiction novel about Agatha Christie's disappearance, told from the perspective of her husband's mistress. It was a really fun read and gave me lots of good, warm feels. Next, I read A Fatal Grace, the second book in Louise Penny's 3 Pines series. A smell of burning filled the air, and Cece de Poitiers was no longer there. Yes. Another person has been murdered in the small Quebecois town of 3 Pines, so Inspector Gamache is called in to investigate. This is such a cozy series. The first few chapters reintroduce us to all of our favorite characters from the last book. In addition to the detective, you've got Claire and her husband Peter, the gays Olivier and Gabri, Myrna from the bookstore, and the crabby but charming Ruth Zardo. This book also introduced a new trio of geriatric ladies, Emily, Beatrice, and Kay. These new characters fit right into the world of 3 Pines, and I really loved getting to know them. Oh, and then the mystery of the book was really good too. Cece de Poitiers was a terribly selfish woman who thought she was some sort of Zen goddess, and during the town's annual curling match, she suddenly drops dead and nobody sees a thing. Poirot loves to talk about what he describes as the psychological moment, a moment where everyone's attention is diverted in one direction so the murder can occur in the other direction unseen. That is exactly what happens here, and Louise Penny did a great job structuring this mystery. I loved the atmosphere, the characters, characters, the twists. I loved everything about this book. Oh, I'm so excited to continue the series next month. Then I read The Defense by Steve Cavanagh, the first book in his Eddie Flynn series. It's been funny reading this series out of order, because then I get introduced to these characters who I've already seen die. But no, this is really good. Not quite the same sort of story I've come to expect from the series. Normally, Eddie Flynn says he will only take on clients when he knows they are innocent. In The Defense, he's defending a client who he knows is guilty. The reason he still defends him, though, is because he's the head of the Russian mafia and they have taken his daughter and strapped a bomb to him. His client knows that when the witness talks, it is game over for him. So he wants Flynn to plant the bomb at the witness stand and blow up the snitch. Flynn decides instead he's going to do everything he possibly can to get the jury to reach a verdict of not guilty. So that way he and his daughter can both survive. This was an excellent, action-packed legal thriller and a great start to the series. And now that I own the rest of them, it's only a matter of time before I get them all read. Ooh! Next, I read the first volume of the Love Stage manga. I got this as a gift from Rachel Fryman. Last year, I discovered the Love Stage anime, and it immediately became one of my favorites. It's about a guy named Izumi who cross-dresses professionally, albeit reluctantly, and a famous TV star, Ryuma, who falls in love with him, not realizing he's a man. I love this story so much, and Izumi is just this precious little cinema roll, and I love them. The anime was very true to the manga it's based on, so reading it was very cozy and familiar. I haven't read a whole lot of manga before, but this is a series I would definitely want to continue. After that, I finished my first audiobook of the month, The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. I started this one immediately after finishing The Woman in White, and I gotta say it was certainly overshadowed by its predecessor. The Moonstone was good, but absolutely not on the same level as The Woman in White. It's about a massive yellow diamond that gets stolen from India, which is then handed down through a British family. A girl receives it as a gift from her uncle on her birthday, and the next morning the diamond is gone. This is considered one of the first detective novels, and I did enjoy that aspect of it. I liked the character who narrated the first half of the book. I felt like it got a little messy after that. They try to get all into psychology in a time when psychology wasn't really understood, so it winds up coming across as some supernatural hocus pocus. I really liked the way it ended though, and like Woman in White, it had a perfect ending. The second Agatha Christie I read this month was Sad Cypress. This is another Poirot mystery where a woman is on trial for murder and Poirot is the only person who believes she is innocent. It was really good and my full thoughts will be in my next Agatha Christie video. So this month I read my very first Discworld novel. Also, can I just say real quick that every time I wrote Discworld in my script, I kept automatically writing Disco World. But yeah, Discworld is a brilliant fantasy series by Terry Pratchett. You can think of it kind of like the fantasy equivalent of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, full of that same British humor. The Discworld novel I read was Going Postal, as part of the read-along hosted by Katya at Read Write Create, Rosie Cockshut, and Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. And I think Beating Around the Books joined as a last-minute host as well. I gotta say, this started out as a very stressful read. Y'all know I like my books short. I had no idea when I committed to reading Going Postal that it was nearly 500 pages long. And we were expected to get it done in a week? Fuck. So at the beginning it felt very daunting, and it certainly was not easy for me to finish in that short window, but damn, I loved it. This is such a good book. While it did take time for me to warm up to, there was plenty in the world-building aspects that really drew me in. The golems buying their own freedom, the bizarre-ass library. My favorite thing was the mail sorting machine, where the architect who built it decided that he didn't like the number pi because it was so long and messy. So in his calculations, he decided to change pi to equal 3. But like, pi is a constant. You can't just change pi. And as a result of this, the machine rips a hole into space-time, and they started to receive letters that hadn't even been written yet. Letters that were almost written, but then weren't. All these letters from different universes started piling in. All because they changed the meaning of pie. I also loved that the theme of this book is hope. This theme is incorporated in countless ways. Hope that the too good to be true con is actually for real. Hope that the girl will say yes. Hope that ghosts are real. Hope that you'll get away with it. Everything in this novel ties back to hope. There was also Veterinary, who provided our protagonist Moist with the freedom of choice, which was really the absence of choice, with a dash of hope thrown in for good measure. Oh, it was just so good. I'm converted. I love Discworld, and I want to read more of this series ASAP. So this month, I read 3 Agatha Christie novels, the third of which being Evil Under the Sun. I've been really eager to read this one so I could watch the adaptation with Maggie Smith. I'll save my full thoughts on it for the Agatha Christie video. But in the meantime, thank you, Lynette, for both this and Sad Cypress. I began reading Fahrenheit 451 as soon as I received it, so that I could participate in Shelley Swearingen's book club. Oh my gosh, this book was amazing. It's about a dystopian future where books are illegal, and the role of firefighters has changed, from putting out fires to starting them, burning down the homes where books are found. But when fireman Guy Montag meets a strange girl while walking home at night, their conversation encourages him to think, for perhaps the first time, in a society that is more and more determined to deter thought. Is he doing the right thing in burning these books? Or might there be some value in still preserving them? Oh, it is such an excellent book. And I have so much I still want to say, but I cannot say any more without spoilers. So, spoiler time. I'll have a timestamp right here and in the description in case you want to skip over all the spoilery parts. Spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think the ending of this book is genius. After being driven out of town, Montag meets like-minded individuals who have each committed a book to memory, so that even after the book is physically destroyed, it will live on. I love this because it takes storytelling back to its origins as an oral tradition. So many of our ancient classics were passed down orally for generations before they were put down on print. So in this sense, literature has gone full circle. And then the bomb goes off, and the city is obliterated. On the surface, that sounds like a bleak ending, but it's really not. It's great. Because now the only people left alive are the orators. Now humanity is left in the hands of thinkers who are dedicated to preserving literature and philosophy and the humanities and deep thought. They have the opportunity to start fresh and build a new world to their vision, a world in which they love and cherish books. Oh, I love it! One more little tangent about this book. So as a kid, I watched a lot of Arthur. And the one piece of that show that is forever etched into my brain is the library card song. Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. Who's Dewey? I love that song so much. Well, one of the lines in the song mentions Ray Bradbury, the author of 451. So anytime I was reading this book or mentioning it to anybody, inevitably that song would get stuck in my head. Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, and Ray Bradbury, you can take it home so you don't have to read it in a hurry. All the thoughts and dreams of people throughout history. And all you need is this little card to borrow one for free. Yay! Yes, Arthur. Oh, thank you so much, Shelley, for this book and for letting me read it with y'all. Then my aunt and I did a buddy read together this month. We read Louise Penny's latest thriller, State of Terror, co-authored with Hillary Clinton. I'm not going to share my full thoughts here because pretty soon my aunt is going to come on the channel and talk about it with me. Oh, I'm so excited. So stay tuned for that. So y'all should know by now how much I adore Roxane Gay. I love Roxane Gay. I've been wanting to read her graphic novel The Banks for a while now, and when the ebook went on sale for Black Friday, I snatched it up and read it in its entirety that day. It's an intergenerational story about a black grandmother, mother, and daughter who take reparations into their own hands by stealing from rich white guys. Oh, it is so good. Oh, and the mom is a butch lesbian. Oh, I love queer shit. I don't watch all that many heist movies. It's not really my typical genre, but I really loved getting to know the women of the Banks family and what they've gone through and why they do what they do. Oh, and it also takes place in Chicago, which made me love it even more. This was so much fun to read, and there's an adaptation currently in the works, which I cannot wait to see. Oh my gosh, I could totally see Angela Bassett playing the kick-ass no-nonsense butch lesbian mom. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so good. So at long last, I have finally read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I've been wanting to read this book for so long. I just knew it was going to be a book that I would love. And I did, although it was much longer than I expected, which stressed me out, so I found myself skimming some parts just so I could get through it quicker. Despite that, I still loved it. Rebecca is about an unnamed protagonist who falls in love with and marries Maxim de Winter, who is still grieving the loss of his first wife, Rebecca. As she moves into their estate, she begins to learn more about the mysteries surrounding Rebecca and her death. I really loved the twists in this book. I thought I knew what was going to happen, but I was wrong. And I loved what actually happened much better than what I predicted. Oh, and I hated Mrs. Danvers, their assistant or whatever her title was. She was fiercely loyal to Rebecca even though the bitch was dead, and therefore hated our protagonist and was a total see you next Tuesday to her. Honestly, they should have just fired her from the jump. But yeah, Rebecca was an excellent book. And if you don't mind your books being close to 400 pages, absolutely pick it up. In the final days of November, I decided to read the Riley Sager thriller Final Girls. I loved his most recent book, Survive the Night, well, except for the final chapter, so I had high hopes for Final Girls, but I did not like it. Final Girls is about a few women who have survived slasher film-like scenarios, and thus being described as Final Girls. But when one of them winds up dead, they all fear for their lives. So my first issue with this book was that it was written in the present tense. I don't remember ever reading a book in the present tense. And it really did not work for me. Also, it was very tropey, like so tropey. And like, I love a good trope, but I didn't like these tropes. The protagonist was a baker, like you would see in countless cozy mysteries. But this book is a thriller and not a cozy, so all the baking stuff felt out of place. They also really leaned into that slasher trope of the virginal final girl. Also, this book was very anti-public defender, and that just really pissed me off. Public defenders are out here doing the Lord's work, protecting lower classes, people of color, queer people, etc. against the rich white men and corporations trying to keep them down. So the way they constantly criticized Jeff for being a public defender just really got on my nerves. This book also made me really anxious. And like, it's a thriller, so maybe you'd argue that's the point, but no. Last night I read a Stephen King short story, not included in this video because I'm waiting till I finish the collection, which made me really, really anxious, but I really enjoyed that. This book just made me uncomfortable. I rushed through the last 200 pages in a day just because I was desperate to get it over with. Yeah, this book did not do it for me. I thought I'd wanted to read all of Riley Sager's work, but now I'm not so sure. Finally, I ended the month by DNFing David Copperfield. I mean, I didn't hate it, but I had devoted 7 hours to listening to it, and I just wasn't feeling any sort of investment in the characters or the story. I enjoyed the part when he was at school and he had a friend, but literally that was it. I'm not saying I'll never finish David Copperfield, it's just not the right book for me right now. I am so excited for everything I've got coming up in December. First, there's the Christie's Missing Readathon, which I'm co-hosting with Naomi from Naomi's Bookshelf and Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures. Then I'm participating in the House of Leaves read-along, hosted by Beating Around the Books. If you haven't heard of it, House of Leaves is a really weird book about a house that's bigger on the inside, but it's so much more than that. It's a unique reading experience with multiple simultaneous narrators and bizarre formatting. I'm so excited to dive into that. And finally, I have all the books that y'all have so generously given to me, and apart from the things that I just mentioned, the rest of my December reading will be dedicated entirely to birthday books. Yay! Thank you, guys. What did you read in November? Are you joining in the Christie's Missing Readathon? Or have you read any of the books I just talked about? Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if it pleases and sparkles, I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!